Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Raffy Luquis, and I'm serving as the Director of Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging within the Penn State Clinical and Translational Science Institute. One of the things we have in today is our first inaugural Amplifying Lion Voices, which is going to be a quarterly seminar dedicated to amplify underrepresented voices in health research that involve areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Now, but before I start, given that tomorrow, beginning November, we celebrate National Native American Heritage Month, I would like to read the acknowledgement of the land. The Pennsylvania State University campuses are located on the original homelands of the Erie, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, Monongahela, Shawnee, Susquehannock, and Wahhazi nations. As a land-grant institution, we acknowledge and honor the traditions caretakers of these lands and strive to understand and model their responsible stewardship. We also acknowledge the longer history of this land and our place in that history. One of the things I wanted to make sure people were on the same page, as we talk about diversity in this webinar series, we refer to the diversity in where demographic composition, race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexuality, age, religion, nationality, disabilities, military, veteran status, economic background, and other identities are all represented of the human complexity of our state, nation, and global constituency. Diversity fosters innovation in research, knowledge production, and classroom learning, greater creativity in decision-making, and better preparation of the students for work and citizenship in an increasingly global society. I hope that the Amplifying Lion Voices promote dialogue and encourage innovative collaboration across diverse researchers, faculty, staff, and students. By amplifying diverse perspective, we can foster belonging and inclusive environment across Penn State. Finally, I just want to acknowledge that all these sessions have been developed in collaboration with the Community Health, Equity, and Engagement and Research Program, which is also part of the CTSI. The CHEERS program promotes community engagement research across the Penn State, spanning many disciplines, with the overall goal of enhancing wellness and reducing health disparities. Today, we have the honor as inaugural speaker for this seminar to have Dr. Sophia I, so it's great to have her here. And I want to read some of her bio. Dr. Sophia I is assistant professor in the Department of Public Health Sciences of the Penn State College of Medicine. As the daughter of parents born in another country, Barbados, West Indies, Dr. Allen was raised to value education and place it in high regard, and it was the key component to a successful career in science. Dr. Allen's research career started in high school when her guidance counselor suggested an internship in science enrichment program at Rutgers University, and this initial experience helped to shape Dr. Allen's future doctoral research on diabetes among the West Indian population in New York City, continuing through her current research at Penn State, focused on substance use, nicotine, and addiction among African Americans who smoke. I'm going to stop here because I want her to tell us more about it as we start this conversation. So, Dr. Allen, again, welcome to be here, our first inaugural webinar speaker. So, I didn't want to read the whole bio because then I want you to tell the audience a little bit more about you. So, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a bit of who you are personally, professionally, how you got here to Penn State College of Medicine.
Wow, it's been a journey. Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be here to speak to you about my journey in research and to where I am today. As I was going through my background and thinking about all the different things that I've experienced, everything is connected. I just found that, stuff aren't happening by happenstance, like everything was directed. So, I was born near Newark, New Jersey, which is the northern part of New Jersey. My parents are from the West Indies, Barbados, where the literacy rate is, almost 100%. So that already, I'm ahead of the game there with just having education and going to school being like a high priority in my family. My dad actually worked for the United Nations. He was a truck driver. In Barbados, he was a mechanic. My mom was a teacher. See what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
My mom was a teacher. They came to the States in late 60s, early 70s. And at that time, you had to be sponsored by somebody that was here. I believe my other family members, my mom is one of 14 kids at that time. So a lot of them were trying to immigrate into the United States just for a better life. In fact, I did go to the African American Museum down in DC, and I saw there's this little plate up in Barbados talking about Barbados and how the United States actually went to the Caribbean islands to look for carpenters to help build this country. So I was like, whoa. And my grandfather was a carpenter. So everything is connected again. So they came to the United States. My dad, again, worked for the United Nations as a truck driver. My mom actually worked for a clothing manufacturer early on in New York City, and then later worked for a pharmaceutical company. And I remember her coming home and bringing the physician's desk reference book because she worked for a researcher. Oh, it's all connected. And I would just read these books. I'm like, it was just a whole bunch of pills in them. I'm like, Mom, what am I supposed to do with this? But I mean, planting the seed early on, she wanted me to go into research. So I think that's where it stemmed from, just where she worked. Then I went to Rutgers University. Let me backtrack a little bit. Went to high school in central New Jersey. And my guidance counselor was the second person who said, okay, well, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I said, well, I want to go into research. And so she found a summer internship for me at Rutgers. And then I worked in a lab, just cleaning out minus rat cages, working with baby chicks. So that was a great experience during the summer. Then got accepted to Rutgers, and my focus there was public health, and my trajectory was research. And near the end, I actually worked at a mental health hospital, analyzing the data of patients' restraints. So they wanted to get rid of patient restraints because they knew it wasn't a good thing in this hospital. The patients weren't happy. And so they were closing down several mental health hospitals in New Jersey. And I helped analyze some of that data because my professor at that time, that was her focus, was mental health. I want to fast forward a little bit because I don't know if you know, but Dr. Jonathan Foles was my mentor here when I became a postdoc, and his focus was mental health. So it's giving me goosebumps, all the different connections that are happening throughout my lifespan. So graduated from Rutgers, couple of years fast forward, met my husband there at Rutgers, and we're here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so got a job working in finance. So I worked in public finance at the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency for over 11 years. So, didn't go into public health, but later on, got a job at the Pennsylvania Department of Health and was there for 3 years working in chronic disease and focused on tobacco prevention and control.
Okay. That's really an interesting story. It's all the connection between your parents and other mentors that you have along the way, and try to get all the way where you're here today. So as you were going through that, talking about some of your personal experiences and other professional experiences, how you start developing the focus area of research that you have right now?
I would say probably stemmed from my family members having type 2 diabetes. So I know I wanted to focus on the West Afro-Caribbean and the Caribbean West Indian population. So that was the focus. My minor in public health at Rutgers was African American studies. So I did minor in that and majored in public health. So, life has a way of veering you off of your track. So my track was supposed to be type 2 diabetes, looking at that because there's a lot of limb amputations in Barbados. So my family was like, you should focus on that. You should do your research on that. So that was my focus through my whole master's degree. And then looking for a job. So I wanted to look for a job. And when I started working on my doctorate, and the one that came up was tobacco prevention and control. In the division of well, it was the Bureau of Health Promotion and Risk Reduction. So while I was in tobacco, I still collaborated with the other chronic disease divisions. So looking at cancer, cardiovascular disease, nutrition, physical activity. So we all worked very closely together. So I would say that's why I got into tobacco, was just at, getting that position at Pennsylvania Department of Health.
Wow, that's as you said, it's all about a matter of your process and how you move from one place to the other, and different jobs and different areas, and how all that basically came to be when it comes to how you got here today, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you have decided to work with, focusing on tobacco on a specific diverse population, specifically African American and so forth, have there been a specific challenge that you have faced getting into that area, working with diverse population, trying to develop your research as you work with these groups?
I hate to say there really hasn't been challenges. I would say the biggest challenge is funding. That would have been the biggest challenge. After I finished my doctorate, a couple months later, the position became open for a postdoc at Penn State, which is like close to my home, Penn State Hershey. So applied for that, got that position, worked with Dr. Folds. Now I would say the funding, when the funding ended from that original Tobacco Center Regulatory Science grant, there was challenges there, just looking for funding. And so one of the mechanisms at the National Institutes of Health is the diversity supplement. So I applied for that with Dr. Folds. He had a grant at that time. So I applied for that, and I got that for, I got 2 of those. So that was helpful, and I learned a lot. NIH actually has a lot of support. It's through the National Institute on Drug Abuse, was the center or the institute where my research was focused on. And they had a lot of support as far as workshops, seminars. So I got to meet a lot of other researchers who also had diversity supplement at other institutions. So that was very helpful.
So then let's shift that to the other side of it. What have been, can you tell us about some of the successful stories that you have had, working through your research, working with different people, working with diverse populations?
So I grew up in New Jersey, like I said, and we went to church every Sunday in Brooklyn, New York. I always asked my mom, why did we go all the way from New Jersey to Brooklyn, New York to this church? Little did I know is that this was a small community that they knew in Barbados, and they created a church in Brooklyn. So that's why we always went there. And then later on, when I was working on my doctorate, this same community again embraced me so much. So there really wasn't a challenge with recruitment, because when I would go, so my doctorate was focused on type 2 diabetes, and just finding out if churches would be interested in offering a self-management program in churches. And so the majority of them did. They were interested in doing that. It was 7 churches where I passed out my 114 item survey, and they all filled it out. I remember at one church, one lady said to me, she said, "Don't forget about us. We will support you all the way." So we had a very tight-knit community. I actually, when I finished my doctorate, they have this convention in New York, and I presented a certificate to the pastor that was presiding over all these churches. And it was just so cathartic. I guess it was so satisfying to give back to the community. I actually printed out a report of my research, the findings that I had, and gave it back to them. So they were very warm. And I would say even moving in Penn State, when I'm interviewing participants or seeing participants here, when I come across African Americans, I think they feel at ease, I think, when they see a researcher that looks like them actually doing it. So I really never experienced challenges. Yes, there's problems with recruitment, of course. And I think we need to focus a little bit more on meeting people where they are as far as recruiting. But I've always felt welcomed by participants and the community that I want to focus on.
So let me ask a question about what you just said. Since there's been plenty literature and plenty articles and plenty publications talking about how difficult it is sometimes to recruit people from diverse communities. How do you go about it? I mean, have you been successful? I know when you're in New Jersey, you have that community embrace you, but what about in Pennsylvania? How do you go about trying to, I don't want to say convince, but trying to really attract people in the community to participate in some of your research that you're doing?
I think it just comes down to breaking it down and saying, this is what's happening. I remember talking to a participant and saying, those disclaimers you hear on TV and the radio that said, oh, well, if you take this drug, this and this will happen to you. These are the things that we collect and research. And there's not a lot of us that are doing the research. So we need your help. We need your help to make it more of a diverse population when these drugs and all these things are being made for the population as a whole, that we can have minoritized populations represented as well. So I think it's just education, answering questions, because they'll have tons of questions. I even have to convince my mom of, the vaccine and all that, all the misinformation that was going around about vaccination and COVID-19. So you just have to be patient, answer their questions. And I think there's research out there that's also showing that you just take the time and talk to people. They may not come around right now, but later on, they'll remember how you made them feel, how you made them feel comfortable, you made them feel seen. So I think it's just a matter of just taking the time and talking to people and answering questions.
So you think that maybe that's why people maybe are more trusting of you, because you had taken the time to do that, to really sit down with them and explain it and everything about the research that you're doing and so forth, so they can willing say, oh yeah, I would like to be part of it.
Yes, listening as well. I think also being part of the community, if that's even possible. You can't just go into a community and be like, okay, I'm here, I want to take your data, and then we're going to do some great things, and you'll see it, eventually on the other end. I think you need to attend the events that they're having in the communities, be genuine, show them that you really care, involve them in the studies, maybe sending out a newsletter monthly, updating what's going on in your research, making them feel seen. I always remember that one, I used to watch Oprah back in the day when she had these conversations, and people just want to be heard. They want to be seen because they, sometimes they feel ignored, and that especially when you're dealing with a population of people who smoke, they feel stigmatized. People don't want them. Oh, your smoking stinks and this and that. But, they are very surprised when we do the qualitative interviews, and they're like, I said, there's a whole community of people who are interested in people who smoke. And they're like, really? I didn't even know that. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's what we're doing. We care about what's going on, and we know you want to quit, or, you don't want to smoke. So I think just being cordial and making them feel like a human being.
Now, before you were talking about, some of the challenges when it came to funding for some of the research, but then I'm going to shift a little bit of the conversation. When it comes to you as a person from a underrepresented group, have there been any challenge for you to get into the research area, to be able to be successful, to be able to, navigate those kind of things that we all as researchers have to navigate sometimes?
I would say yes, but you need to come at it at an innovative angle. So yes, you can't just say, oh, I want to focus on African Americans, but what's the twist to it? Like, my research is focusing on technology, cell phones, text messaging, hopefully AI in the future, or some type of avatar to help with quit smoking. Come at it at an angle that's innovative. And I think because smoking has been around for a long time, and
Yeah.
you know, the people who review your grants they're like, oh, this is same old, same old. What is, you know, what's going to be different? What are they doing that's innovative that hasn't been done before? I think you have to think about, you don't know what you don't know, right? So you just have to push the envelope and say, you know what, let's try this and see what happens. Making sure it's evidence-based, of course. Going into the realm that I was going into, there weren't a lot of research out there focused on solely African Americans. So I think you have to look at the gap in the research. There's a lot of research on smoking, but are we focusing specifically on the population that's dying at the highest rate among those who smoke? So.
So then, I know you talk about some of the successful story you have, you know, the mentorship that you have received, the embrace by the community, you know, some of the things you're able to accomplish, you know, in your time. Are there any other stories that you can share with other people that might come from the same background as you are, and underrepresented background that you are, that they, you know, they can learn from it, they can, you know, maybe some lessons that you have learned along the ways that people can say, hey, yeah, that's something maybe good to know?
I would say, make sure you know, and this goes back to training from the state, who's on your board of directors. Surround yourself with people who genuinely want to help you, people who are going to sponsor you. Not just say, okay, well, you're the minority person and we want to amplify your voice, right? Make sure they're going to provide some type of support for you in the future. Like, are you going to write a reference letter for me when I'm applying for a grant, or when I want to get this position or a new job? Are you going to be the person in the room that says, you know what, I know someone, how about Sophia I? I think she would be a great person for this. Are you going to go to bat for that person? And make sure you surround yourself with genuinely people who are going to support you. And I hate to say it, but leave the people who are not supporting you behind, because they're only going to stifle your creativeness and your, I mean, sometimes people who are against you, the naysayers, you kind of build on that momentum and say, well, I'm going to do it anyway. But definitely you don't want those people in your close-knit surrounding board of directors on your trajectory for your career.
Good. Now, I know that recently you received one of the NIH supplemental grants to promote diversity at Penn State. So can you tell us briefly a little bit about that and how that might, you know, how do you think that impacts you moving forward? How will it let you do other things that you might not be able to do before?
Well, first of all, and I know Dr. Jonathan Foles doesn't like this, but he was so instrumental in, I mean, if he didn't have a grant and say, yes, I'm going to support you in this, I wouldn't be here today. So definitely Dr. Foles, Dr. Muscat, he doesn't, you know, talk a lot, but he was the one sending me emails as a postdoc saying when NIH had like workshops, he's like, oh, you should apply for this. And you wouldn't think that, you know, I would get emails from certain people saying you should apply for this. The late Dr. Ritchie, he was one of my mentors on the diversity supplement. And he was so motivated and so encouraging of my career. Dr. Rebecca Phaeton, she was a doctor here a while back. There was a building up researchers for underrepresented minorities. So that was a program that was, I want to say it was 19 institutions across the United States. And she was my near peer mentor for that. Dr. Andrea Hopkirk, she's always been supportive. She was one of my mentors as well during that building up study and program that I was in. So there's always people there that were supporting me. Dr. William Callow, of course, he's awesome. He had applied for a diversity supplement, and I was able to see what his application looked like. So many great people to help at Penn State. Dr. Cheryl Thompson, as soon as she got here, she's like, okay, let's meet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know you. But she was, she's so willing to support as well. And then applying for, I think it was another administrative supplement with another principal investigator that's a leader in the field that worked with Dr. Ritchie. And, there's so many supportive people that helped me through my journey. And I want to return that as well, now being a PI of a K grant and mentoring part-time research assistants and doctoral students, and then students I teach in class for public health leadership. They're the future. I mean, I'm not going to be here forever, and we need someone to, take the baton when it's time for us to retire, if we do retire, or become consultants in the future.
Okay. So if I hear you correctly, basically those mentors are key, not only having the mentors, but listening to their advice and follow through.
Yes.
And taking advantage of whatever opportunities they send your way, because
Right.
those are the ones who might open some doors that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to.
Right. And I have to say, Dr. Josh Smythe, he has recently left Penn State, but he does have still a research team here that he was instrumental in me getting my K grant and is my primary mentor. He dealt with he created the dream team, I guess, with the cell phones here at Penn State. So definitely have to thank him for taking a chance on me, because, I had to kind of prove that I was gonna, be, I don't want to say worthy, but just advancing my career. So he was very successful, helpful in advancing my career as well.
So anything else you want to share with the audience about what are you doing these days, what you see yourself moving next in your research area, or anything that you might haven't explored yet, but you're like, oh, that's only one thing that I might consider down the road?
I definitely want to look into chatbots, which is where this AI is going. I think there's room for us to move into technology because I don't know if we're doing in-person clinical trials now. We have some challenges with recruitment, but I think, what would a great grant be submitted to NIH looking at, well, we can do remote trials, but still have that relationship or connection with people who are in our research. I don't know how we would do it, but I think finding the answer to that, or finding several answers to that, would be a great way to advance our research at Penn State. Is looking into the future for things who haven't been done, pushing the envelope. It may sound wild at first, but then it's like, no, we got to do this. Because what are the great people who've created great things in this world? They've failed several times, but then you just see the success that they have seen. So I think definitely going into technology deeper and just understanding it, making sure people feel secure as well. I think security is a top thing that we need to be concerned about, and definitely look into that. I also supporting postdocs, supporting our graduate students, supporting students as a whole. Just having lunch with them, having coffee with them, talking to them about where they see themselves in the future, and supporting them in that trajectory.
So we have a few questions from the audience, but before I get there, just one more question. Since you talk about from the beginning, you have parents and other people who were giving you some kind of advice. Looking back, what advice you will give somebody that who's maybe in high school or middle school who might be thinking, do I want to go into this public health or research or whatever that might be? What advice would you give them?
Well, I'm sort of a risk taker and kind of stubborn. So I never took no for an answer with things. They're like, oh, you can't do that, Sophia. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm going to do it anyway. So I think don't let anyone crush your dreams or crush your career. Wherever you want to go, you can do it. That's one thing I would say. Just keep going on that trajectory. If there's questions you have about a certain path that you want to take, seek that person that may be that distinguished professor at Penn State. I mean, I did, and I was terrified. I did not want to contact that person, but you have to take the risk. I kept saying, this is my career. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So, I mean, I got to get off this being shy and not wanting to talk to those leaders in the field. And I think leaders in the field, you know, be open to talking with those who are coming up after you.
So we have our first question from the audience is, you have spoken so much about your both formal and informal mentors throughout your career. What did you thought about generating a structured mentor program for underrepresented minoritized students interested in research?
I'm all for it. We need that. I think we also need to have a training program for mentors, like how to be a mentor as well. So sometimes you say, oh, be a mentor, we'll do this. But then the mentor is like, well, what do I do? What do I say? How, you know, is there a structure? Like for me, I like structure and things outlined for me. Some people just like to wing it. So yeah, I'm definitely for that.
Right. So the next question, imposter syndrome is a very present reality for many underrepresented and minoritized students in both medical education and research. How will you advise be to these students, considering the fact that you have acknowledged that your specific background as a minority is less common than many of those underrepresented backgrounds? That's a long question if you get it all.
I know what you're talking about, though. I mean, I'm always the only one in the room. I'm always the only one, you know, the only minority in the room. I don't want to say you have to get over that, but you have to overcome that. You could do daily motivation. So me and my lab, our team, we're doing these, you could do affirmations, write down, I am worthy, I am supposed to be here. I think just positive self-talk will help. On a daily basis, write down your accomplishments. If someone has emailed you, wow, that was a great idea, Sophia, or great job on this, save that. Have like a folder in your email or somewhere on your computer with positive self-talk, people who have congratulated you on certain things. And then, you know, revisit that when you're feeling you have that imposter syndrome going on. Read those and say, you know what, I am worthy. Because sometimes you feel like, should I really be here? I mean, I feel that sometimes I'm like, really, are they really going to give me this grant? Like, oh my gosh, they have so much faith in me. And yeah, so I would say do that. Positive self-talk, affirmations, motivational quotes. That's been really helpful.
That's great advice. Next question. This might be interesting. I don't know, you might have a lot to talk about. What are the 3 things you love about your job?
Oh my goodness, have to be the people. Number one. Okay. Number one is the people. The work I do, and being independent, being able to have this say what my research is. I know it's weird, but yeah, so I've worked at a pharmaceutical company, worked at government, state government, and everything's very restrictive. Like you have to go on this path, but with research and you could just do, like, you have this idea. It's like, okay, let me write a grant for that. Or let me run this by other people and see what they think. I think just having the freedom to do your own thing.
That's good.
I'm sort of a rebel.
Next questions. What are some advice you will give to a college student who's interested in pursuing career in research?
Sort of what I talked about before, just surrounding yourself with people who will support you on your journey. Read a lot, attend those seminars and webinars and workshops that the National Institutes of Health have. I attended a lot of those and you're listening to the leaders of the people who are giving you the grants. And they have tons of stuff on their website to tell you exactly how to get the grant and what they're focused on. You just have to come up with an idea on, well, how can I make this innovative? Watch YouTube videos. I know NIH is on YouTube a lot. Look at some of the nonprofit organizations, American Lung Association, American Heart Association, all the foundations. Just read and just search the internet, but definitely look at National Institutes of Health, their priorities, and watch their webinars and workshops.
And then I guess following that question from my point of view, some of the things that we would like to accomplish as part of my role at Hershey, then how we go about supporting the students that, decide they're going to go into research, it's college students.
Yeah. That's the big question, isn't it? I guess we have to look for other funding areas. We have to, funding is, looking at different organizations, maybe nonprofits that are interested. There might even be entrepreneurs or like people who are looking, they have all this money and they're looking to spend it on a researcher. I know the postdoctoral society that I was in, they were very helpful in providing support. There's so much support at Penn State, I would say. And there is a database of a whole bunch of grants that we could apply to. So I think us as PIs and researchers, we need to apply for these grants, network with others at other institutions. What are they doing that's made them successful? So I think networking with other institutions, looking to see people who have a lot of money who are willing to give it away for, students.
There's two other questions. One of them, you talk about some of the challenges in your academic professional career, although you said there was no other than funding. But anyhow, what would be one of those challenges and how you went about overcoming?
I would say more of the challenges have been like in my head. Like, I don't think I want to do this, like working on my doctorate. Like, I said, I'm going to quit. I just can't do this anymore. It's too hard. Like all these papers, all this reading I have to do. But on some of my presentations, I have a picture of my family. We took it with my grandmother. She's now passed away. So many people in my family have passed away. And that's just my motivation. You have to find what is your motivation? Is it your family? Is it your kids? Do you want to leave a legacy for others? We see conflicts going on around the world, and it's like, how can I help? How can I make a mark? How can I help other humans in the world? I think that is part of the motivation, as well as family. That was my motivation, at least.
I think that's a great segue to the next question. How do you balance your professional and personal life? There's no balance.
I get 4 hours of sleep. This is bad. Because my husband's like, "Are you coming to bed?" Like, my mind is going, I can't sleep. I have so much stuff to do. There is no balance. You just have to follow your heart. Yes, sleep is very important. You have to make time for self-care. You have to do that. Keep positive self-talk. You just got to get up, take a walk. Do it in small increments, like 15-minute walk. If you can't do 30 minutes or an hour in exercise, do some meditation, light a candle, take a bath, do some things for yourself to get away from it all. Sometimes that's what I try to do. But it's hard because my work is so exciting.
Cool.
It's hard to turn off my mind.
Okay, I have another question that this might be interesting. Thinking back or reflecting back, would you have done anything differently in your career?
Probably not work in finance for so long. I was kind of comfortable, but I guess at that time I was raising 3 kids. So that was a stable position. And I wanted to I think I would have probably started earlier in public health instead of being nice and comfortable where I was in finance. But I learned so much though. being in research, like you focus on public health and research and stuff, but I also have the background in business. So, managing employees, knowing how to work in critical situations, when there's a crisis, knowing how to work through that. So I think one of the things would probably just gone into public health a little bit sooner.
Okay. We took a minute ago, you were talking about you leaving a legacy. So a question from the audience is, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 10 years? I will say 5 years, 10 years. And what would be your legacy that you would like to leave behind?
My legacy, less death and disease. That's what I would like. Among minoritized populations and those at risk. So in the rural populations, there's so many of the same conversations. So we can't just limit it to one race, one ethnicity. It's a socioeconomic status. It's the social determinants of health, where you live determines what your future is going to look like. Mine is just, you have to focus on something, or you can't save the world all at one time. Some people can, but yeah, you have to focus on one little thing at a time, and just less death and disease and disrespect, just more love, more love in the world.
So I guess since you mentioned something about your mom being so influential on you and your career, if any of your kids are following your footsteps or looking at mom saying, mom is doing all this, maybe we can do that too.
No.
No.
My son is in technology, so he got computer science. My daughter's in communications, and then my other son is in finance. So they're doing their own thing. And I think that's what my husband and I raised them to do. Whatever you want to do it to the best of your ability. Don't focus on, being the doctor, being the lawyer, even though that's a great thing to do. But there are other great things as well. So they're just, in their own lane, doing their own thing. So I don't think they saw me still see me up late at night. Like, what are you doing? It's definitely a passion.
Yeah, well, that's great. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Still have a few minutes left. I think we have gone through. Oh, there's no other questions for now. Anything else that you want to leave the audience with as kind of a final remarks, or anything you want to summarize based, your experience, your career, where you are, where you've been, where you are, where you're going next, that people,
do it all, but then have a focus.
Yeah.
I would say whatever your passion is, go for that. And this is the advice I received. Whatever you're going to focus on, do it with all your heart. If that's what you want to do, just do it. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how you're going to get there. But there's definitely a whole community here at Penn State to help you get through that. So, don't be afraid to ask questions. They may seem silly to you, but they're not. Asking questions, that's how you gain more knowledge. And push the envelope. The world is your oyster. You can do anything you want to do that you set your mind to.
Well, thank you, Sophia, for your time today and all your stories and all the things you have done. Just wanted to make sure the audience know that we put some links on the chat that, when we talk about the diversity, research supplemental, diversity supplemental, talk about the funded clinical effective research stuff. We also have a link that go into CTSA information on diversity and reentry integration. Let's see. We have a big thank you very much, Sophia, for everything you have done. So yeah, I think it's been great. I think one of the things we wanted to do with these Amplifying Voices is just to get to know somebody at a personal level. Because we have so many of these talks that we just talk about your research. And yeah, I'm sure you can talk about all your research and all the findings that you have and all those results and all the statistic analysis and all of that. But I really wanted to get more about, okay, who is the person behind the research? Sometimes we don't take the time to know that person. And I think this was great to get to know you. And I wish you luck in whatever you're doing next. Once again, thank you for being our first speaker for the webinar.
Yes.
Some of the things I wanted to share is the Penn State Clinical CTSI is building an affiliate program for interested Penn State faculty across the Commonwealth. Affiliates will have the opportunity to enter into a non-fiscal relationship with CTSI, and the affiliate program seeks to officially recognize and formalize efforts of faculty contribution to CTSI. This is a program that is coming, it's going to be open pretty soon. Keep an eye on, if you're not, people who are not affiliated with CTSI, please go to their website. You can go to the CTSI website. If Jen, you can put it on the chat, and click on the newsletter link and add to newsletter, and they will, you can get their information with all some of these programs coming out in the next few weeks. But this will be another opportunity for faculty outside Penn State Hershey to be affiliated and be part of some of the things that are happening, all the wonderful things that are happening on CTSI at the Penn State College of Medicine and the College of Health and Human Development at University Park. Before we go, I know that Jen might be posting, we would like to have an evaluation that you will be receiving right before we close out this afternoon or soon after. Please make sure that you fill that evaluation. You will provide us for great feedback. We are planning to do this quarterly. So if you know of anyone that you know that is working in the area, different, diversity area, who would like to be a speaker, please let me or Jen at Cheers know, and we will follow up with them. And that's something we'd like to do. We will, as I said, we're going to do this quarterly. So our next Amplifying Lion Voices probably won't be until sometime February or March, sometime in that next quarter. Again, I want to thank everybody who took the time this afternoon to be part of this first inaugural Amplifying Voices webinar. And once again, thank you, everyone. Anything else that I need to remember before we close out this afternoon? Thank you all for being here again. There's a link for the short suite evaluation. Please complete that as soon as you can, because if once you leave, you forget about it. I would definitely appreciate the feedback that I can get and Sophia can get as we can improve this webinar series moving forward. Thank you again, and I appreciate all your time and participation. We'll see you.
Thanks. Thanks, Raffy.